Good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here with me. I know conferences like this are always packed up with talks, and you still chose to spend 30 minutes of your life with me talking about incidents. So that's a bit masochistic, but it's great. So let me maybe introduce myself quickly. My name is Agata Skorupka. I'm in DevOps field for around 7 years so far. I also have academic and developer background, and recently I focused on helping SaaS businesses to scale. So I worked a lot with startups, and I have seen a lot. Today I will share some of the things I saw with you, but of course anonymized. So let me start, of course, with a question, as always on the conference talk. How many of you have ever walked out of the postmortem meeting thinking, that was a complete waste of time, nothing is ever going to change? Raise your hand. Oh my God, okay, that exceeded my expectations. So yeah, that means you are not alone. And that is exactly why we are here. I'm happy because it means maybe this talk would be useful. Yeah, basically it means that that's exactly why we're here. Postmortems, if they're done badly, they can turn into the most stigmatizing ritual in tech, okay? But if they are done correctly, they can really transform the way team collaborates, learns, and grows together. However, this talk is not about corporate spin. I will not tell you that incidents are opportunities, because please, if you have ever been paged at 3 a.m. in the morning, staring at a broken dashboard and slamming cold pizza in your face, that definitely does not feel like opportunity. That feels more like a misery, right? So let's cut the nonsense. Mistakes happen, incidents happen to everyone, and they happen everywhere. They're not exotic, and they are not rare. They are just part of our job, just as writing the code, reviewing pull requests, or like drinking too much coffee. So the question really is not how to stop incidents, prevent them to happen, because this is impossible. The question is really about how do you respond in a way that makes us stronger instead of more afraid. And that is what today is about. So there is a Latin quotation by some famous ancient philosopher, errare humanum est. That means to err is human. And it means that everyone makes mistakes. They happen to the best of us. Even the brand character from the Phoenix project, the magical unicorn engineer who could fix almost anything, even he broke stuff, right? And if you don't know brand character in your organization, then maybe it means your brand in your company. Then my condolences. But please think about this in your everyday life. Learning how to cook, learning a new language, learning to play an instrument. Mistakes are not only likely, they are guaranteed. You burn up the toast, you hit the wrong note, you mix up your tenses, right? And what happens? You beat yourself up every time you fail. Yeah? Then you freeze. You stop trying, you hide away from challenges. And now imagine what would happen if you approach your mistakes just as major engineering team in an ideal world approaches incidents. So basically, mistakes are no longer sources of shame. You just analyze them, adjust your approach, and celebrate small wins. Suddenly, every slip-up is not source of shame anymore, but it's a data for you to analyze. So basically, mistakes in life, just like mistakes in system, they are baseline for growth. Deny them, and you create fear and paralysis. Accept them, and you will create room for improvement, resilience, and ultimately mystery. But here is the kicker now. Organizations who refuse to accept that mistakes are something normal and natural, their postmortems quickly collapse into useless rituals. Because if you don't accept mistakes are normal, you create fear. And fear breeds silence. Silence breeds repeated outages. So basically, what I mean by acceptance when I say so, It actually does not mean complacency. It does not mean we shrug our shoulders and say, okay, things break, this is what it is. We know what it means really is that we know, first of all, that mistakes will happen. It's guaranteed. So we design processes, safeguards, to absorb them. And we make sure that incidents become sources of insights, not sources of shame. When you accept that human error is inevitable, you will stop wasting your energy on hunting witches, but you start investing your energy to build safeguards. Okay, so let's warm this up with a little bit of horror stories. They are all real, but they are anonymized. And if you're in tech for more than a year, you probably have seen at least one of those. And this one is a classic. So database goes down, systems grind to a halt, team scrambles for hours. Finally, someone finds the issue and the report is created. Root cause, outdated driver. Action item, updated driver. Done, case closed. Except nothing is actually changed, really, because there is still no redundancy, there is still no monitoring, and there was not even a conversation why the driver wasn't updated in the first place. So how can anything change? 6 months forward, the same exact issue, just a different driver, and the cycle repeats. Here is another favorite, Black Friday outage. And the team spends days to prepare a beautiful 10-page report in Confluence, which has everything. Diagrams, flowcharts, action items in beautiful color-coded bullet points. Except no one ever looks at it ever again. So you can imagine what happens. 7 months forward, very similar outage. And when someone digs through Confluence, they find the exact report. So what does it really prove? That organization actually knew how to prevent this, but they didn't bother. It's not great. The other one I like the most. So basically, feature flag gets flipped the wrong way, and everyone knows who did this, but on the meeting, people don't speak up because they know if they speak up, that engineer will be thrown under the bus. So instead, the meeting is filled with awkward silence and vague notes like configuration process improvement, and team leaves the room discouraged, knowing nothing is ever going to change. So yeah, does it sound familiar to you? Because they are not outliers, they're normal, everyday failures of postmortem culture. Okay, not enough? Then let's turn the dial a little bit up. Someone makes a mistake and production, deployment goes wrong and production goes down. What the leadership does? You have the answer on the slide. Yes, they fired the person. So let me pause here for a second, because as I told you, these are all real life stories, just anonymized. So the leadership thought that the best response to a complex system failure is basically remove a human being. Newsflash, everyone makes mistakes, even the best of us, even Brent from the Phoenix project. So if you have built an organization which says one mistake and you out, then congratulations, because no one will ever tell the truth again in your company. Here is what will happen. People will hide their problems until they explode. And when they do explode, you will have no one left to trust you enough to help fix them. So basically, I want you to imagine the morale in that team after firing of that person. Every engineer knows now you're just one typo away from unemployment. Do you think that team feels motivated, innovative, curious, or they feel terrified, constantly second-guessing themselves, covering up their tracks, and never admitting anything when something goes wrong? Another gem, the last one, I promise, then we will be more constructive. But basically, I have seen organizations where postmortems are basically public shaming rituals. So I want you to picture this. An engineer stands in front of the whole team and confesses, slide by slide. Here is exactly what I did wrong. Here is the reason why I caused this failure. Okay? And the worst part, the leadership think that they are genuinely teaching. They will say, oh, we will make sure that everyone learns from it. Except, no, you're not. You're just broadcasting one message loud and clear. If you screw up, we will humiliate you. And once that message lands, what do people do? They stop innovating, they stop trying, and they stop telling the truth. So that's not learning, that is organizational cowardice. So let me be blunt. If your organization does not allow space for mistakes, it is not high-performance culture, it is immature culture. If your leaders think that blaming or shaming person is a road to resilience, they are wrong. It's not debatable, not matter of opinion, just wrong. Because decades of research on human safety, psychological safety and resilience engineering, they all agree. So, for example, Reason, Holnagel, Edmondson, they all agree people will always make mistakes. Yeah, newsflash. So systems must be designed with that reality in mind. A mature organization will accept it. An immature one will pretend they can only hire perfect people. But spoiler alert, perfect people don't exist, right? And here is actually the irony. The organizations which punish mistakes the most, they're actually the ones who have the most repeated outage. Why? Because there is no trust. So whenever a tiny crack appears, everyone is too scared to raise their hand. And by the time leadership notices, the whole system collapses. Okay, so now that we have survived all the horror stories and seen what can go wrong, let's shift gears and stop complaining, see actually what we can do to help to fix these issues. First rule, start with systems, not people. What does it mean? Whenever something goes wrong, natural reaction could be asking, oh my God, why did you do that? And don't ever do that, because that is the moment you break the trust forever. Instead, you can ask, what allowed this to happen? What of our processes allowed the incident to propagate? So draw it out if you want, make a diagram, timeline, map the flow of data, automations, human touch points, and see where the system failed. I promise you, this analysis will tell you more than blaming a person ever could. And think about this, if you start with people, you will get fear, hesitation, and cover-ups. You start with systems, you will receive clarity and a real tangible roadmap for improvement. And people, they will breathe easier, they will actually want to participate. Let's talk also about gratitude when people admit their mistakes. So picture this, an engineer comes up and says, hey, I think I might cause this problem. And what could be the reaction? Sometimes natural human reaction is shock, frustration, maybe even anger. But when you react like this, actually the whole room learns the lesson, never ever admit anything. So instead, you could react with gratitude and say, okay, thank you for flagging this up. Happens to the best of us. Let's investigate how did it happen and what can we do to improve the process in the future. Because the bravest people in your organization are actually the ones who admit their own mistakes. Yeah? It's actually a gift of early visibility. It actually reinforces a culture where people trust each other, that they share issues before they will become a disaster. And it is not only about admitting own mistakes. Sometimes it may happen that someone else spots the issue and raise their hand, hey, I think something might went wrong here. It may be awkward at the beginning. Natural reaction would be maybe ignore that to avoid conflict or blame that person who did a mistake. But there is no need to do that. You can react in the same way. Just acknowledge the flag, investigate the process, maybe even together, and see what you can do in the future to prevent that. So focus on system, not the person. And when you react in such a way, you reinforce healthy habits in your organization that ultimately build culture, which signals raising issues is safe and valuable. And this actually, why this is important, because it turns potential finger pointing into collaboration and reinforces that team is stronger together when everyone looks out for each other. That, though, does not mean sloppy work is okay. That means honesty is valued. It's really about giving the team a chance to respond before the issue hits customer or production. So again, two cultures, fear versus safety. Fear, people hide mistakes, outages happen, they accelerate, and burnout escalates. Safety, people feel safe to flag issues early, so they fix them early and team grows stronger. The choice is obvious here. A postmortem, which finishes with only vague notes like be more careful, update documentation, or configuration process improvement, is basically useless. Because every action item should have at least three things: owners, deadlines, and follow-up. Assigning owners is critical. It actually makes sure that something will happen with that ticket further. Deadlines make it real. And follow-up ensures that the ticket will not die somewhere in the backlog. But here is the secret. When the same people who are shipping features and firefighting the production are expected to fix all the systemic weaknesses, chances are nothing will happen. Because for actual continuous improvement, you need dedicated time and you need dedicated people. So these consistent fixes, small consistent fixes over time, they beat off one of heroic effort every time. Remember about this. And celebrate learning, not perfection. Always. Every postmortem should have at least one positive takeaway, even if it's difficult. So did your monitoring catch the issue before it was too late? Did someone else spot the problem? Maybe you learned anything during that process. So even small victories matter. Recognize them and celebrate them. Because positive reinforcement diminishes fear and encourages transparency, and that's what it really is about. And it's not sugarcoating, it's just smart culture design. Visual tools are your friends. So as we mentioned, diagrams, flowcharts, timelines, they make discussion about systems constructive and concrete. They stop blame from sneaking in. Why? Because when you map the process and see where the problem started and how did it propagate, you can focus on constructive solutions rather than accusations. Last but not least, close the loop. So don't forget about learning loops. Basically, postmortem is not finished when the meeting is over. So follow up. Did the fixes actually work? Did our processes improve? What actually changed? So maybe consider scheduling a mini retro a week or two later to reinforce learning, close the loop, and make sure your team sees tangible results. Because this is the thing that motivates the most, that something actually changed. It was not complete waste of time. Okay, and let's talk about leaders, because like it or not, they matter more than everyone else in the room. You can have best procedures, best templates, best facilitators, but if you have one leader who is poisoning the atmosphere, the whole system collapses. If you have a leader that interrogates instead of inquiring, Basically, it does not matter how effective they are with closing the tickets, with impressing the board, or with hitting KPIs. Because when you interrogate instead of inquire and ask, why did you do this on the meeting, the trust is gone. And the trust is crucial. It's a very specific thing because it is invisible. You cannot measure it with KPIs. Yet, when there is no trust, everything collapses. People resist quietly, they give up, they just not on meetings, but stop give you their real thinking. Yeah, and this is the problem. So, basically, leaders have to learn that culture is not a poster you put somewhere on the wall. It is actually something that is created or destroyed in every interaction. So, if you want the culture that reinforces learning, you need models you need leaders who model curiosity, not blame. And that means asking that questions, process-oriented, surprise-oriented, instead of who screwed up, basically. And after the meeting, I'm sorry, but these are leaders who need to do the boring work. So assign owners, track the progress, and follow up. And what else? What we spoke before, they actually need to fight for resources, especially if the team is busy firefighting. Because, as we mentioned, when the same team who is firefighting is expected to fix systemic weaknesses, nothing really will happen. So real leaders know, for continuous improvement and for good postmortem culture, you need dedicated capacity, you need dedicated time and people. They also know that you cannot fix everything overnight, for example, legacy systems, but you can do it step by step. And good leaders will make sure that their team will have breathing room while doing that. Legacy, which I already mentioned, because I already hear some of you thinking, okay, this is very nice, but I'm stuck with the mountain of ancient code, and I cannot fix everything overnight. And yes, this is correct, you cannot fix everything overnight. It's like with a renovation of old house, basically. You cannot rebuild it in 1-2 days, but you can fix one leak, and next the other leak, so step by step. So what I propose to do here is just pick one service, test its rollback path. Pick one very noisy alert and tune it until it is actually useful. Pick one deployment pipeline and automate one safeguard. And I promise you, if you do that consistently, 6 months later you will be in a completely different place. Do nothing, and 6 months later you will find the same exact issues and fires you have right now. Let's pause on a second to talk about the language, because organizations love buzzwords. They love to talk about grit, perseverance, resilience, I don't know what else. And it all looks great on the slide deck. But what it often actually really means under the hood, just work harder, stop complaining, and burn out quietly. And this is not resilience, this is denial. Real resilience is not about pretending you're invincible. It is about designing systems that bend without breaking, and it is about accepting failure as a part of environment, just making sure that the whole company does not go down with it. So what is exactly about this language? 2 sentences I already covered a lot during this presentation. So let's focus on why did you do this versus how our processes allow it to happen. Why I underline the difference so much? Because it may seem small, but let's think about this together. One is focused around, it's actually very personal, because why did you do this? It's focused around fear, blame, punishment, and question about the process. It's exactly as the name indicates, process-oriented. It enforces curiosity and collective learning. So here is the difference, and you can also think about it when you are referring to your inner voice. What happens if you make a mistake? In your personal life, will your inner voice beat you up and say, oh my God, I screwed that up? So then you obviously freeze and you stop learning, hide away from challenges. Or your inner voice could be constructive and analyze, okay, here is what I did right, here is what I did wrong, here is what I can improve the next time. And the same with organizations. Basically, this is a famous quotation by a postmodernistic philosopher Wittgenstein: the limits of my language mean the limits of my world. That means the words we use, either inner voice, either meetings, postmortem, they all shape our reality. They shape the way we grow, we learn, what we perceive possible to do and what we perceive safe to do. So better watch out for them. And if your organization, or if you meet an organization which says, oh yeah, we value grit and resilience, just ask them, but do you punish mistakes or you also learn from them? Do you invest in safeguards or just expect people work harder? Because answer to these questions will tell you everything or almost everything you need to know about the culture of that organization. And one last word about the naming, because we see already words matter. So, postmortem versus retrospective. Postmortem, it is actually coming from a medical forensics and autopsy. It means post-incident or even post-death. It's not really encouraging curiosity or discussion, right? Retrospective is about analyzing, about systems, collective learning. So I'm not encouraging you to change everything. I'm not a fan of changing all the words we use, but just remember they matter. And even if you still want to use postmortem name in your organization, just run it with a retrospective mindset. Curiosity, not fear. And remember what postmortem stands for. It's also helpful. Okay, let me show you the difference in practice now. So deployment goes wrong, API is down for 30 minutes, and let's see how would blame-driven organization versus acceptance-driven organization respond. They both create a report, postmortem report. Blame-driven organization, after a thorough analysis, they put root cause engineer mistake. That's very thorough analysis. And action items is be more careful, which is sometimes impossible, right? So this action item does not have owner or deadline because it really cannot. Like, what is the deadline of be more careful? And team leaves the meeting discouraged, obviously. Acceptance-driven organization will put some more effort into analyzing the system behind what went wrong. So it will analyze the timeline, and maybe timeline will show that alerts were late and rollback wasn't tested. And this actually you can turn into real action items. So rollback tested monthly, this is also important, they also put frequency there, alerts tune, and maybe some feature flag introduced. Owners are assigned, deadlines are also set, there are follow-ups, and as a result, system is much safer. And the most important, team leaves the meeting energized, not demotivated. So this is the difference. And before we wrap up, because we're getting closer to the end, I would like to call one more extreme I have recently met. Because I have recently met an organization who, whenever any issues were flagged, they responded, oh, but we thrive in chaos. We don't need a process, we don't need documentation, we move fast and adapt on the fly. So, sounds exciting, right? It's like a startup movie with energy drinks, hoodies and laptops and all the cool stuff. And sure, in short term, it may be thrilling. Problem gets solved at 3 a.m., systems get back online, heroes emerge, cool. But in the long run, this culture, it eats itself alive. Because chaos does not scale. The bigger the system, the bigger the blast radius. The bigger the team, the more and faster trust erodes when everything is always all hands on the deck. Yeah? So And actually, here is the paradox. Leaders often say, okay, but we don't have time for retrospective, for analysis, for process. And paradox is, if you don't invest time in that, you will spend exponentially more of that time firefighting. So it may seem like time saving in a moment to skip retrospective and reflection, but what are you really doing is borrowing time from the future. And debts come due in the form of endless crises. Okay, so let's wrap up. As always, conference talk, key takeaways. Okay, let's summarize this. Incidents are inevitable, of course. We have to accept them, stop pretending they're exotic, rare, or happen to the worst of us. But this acceptance does not mean complacency and shrugging shoulders. It means we save our energy to build safer systems. Remember that leaders are the most important when it comes to shaping culture, especially blameless culture. Action items without owners, deadlines, follow-ups, they just are useless and disappear. The fact that you cannot fix everything overnight is not an excuse to fix nothing. Buzzword does not fix systems, but trust and real action do. Chaos is not a strategy. It's a tax you pay when you don't invest in process. So let me be blunt, it's a tax you pay for laziness. And last but not least, building a culture requires habit. So everything I told is not a checklist. You cannot just sit down and run past it and say, okay, celebrate small wins, check, assign owners, check. No, that's not how it works. Culture is not built in single meeting. It is created spontaneously in forms of many tiny interactions, not only yours, but every member of your team. So every time you assign owners, yes, it is small realization of habit. Every time you do follow-up, yes, it is small realization of the habit. And these actions may feel very small in that moment, but they accumulate over time. James Clear, in his famous book Atomic Habits, calls it compound effect of habits. So basically, small actions taken over time can deliver remarkable results in the future. So do that consistently, and it will signal your team, this is how we do it here. Do it over months, and you will create a culture. Not a one-off ritual, not a single meeting, but living culture, reinforced in every interaction. And this is all I wanted to leave you with. Maybe I started with a question, I can finish with a question. You don't have to respond loud. But what one small action can you take tomorrow, and not next month, not next quarter, in your organization, to make your post-mortem culture healthier, especially question for the leaders. So it was a pleasure to deliver this talk for you. I hope it was interesting and you learned something. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. Thank you.